As car enthusiasts, we're hardwired to hate EVs. They're boring, they're soulless, and they're the antithesis of everything we want. But the reality of the matter remains. Electrification is the inevitable fate of the auto industry. Despite this, there are two EVs I can currently tolerate. My Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo and the new Jeep Wrangler 4Xe.
Let me just start off by stating the obvious. The 4Xe is not a full electric vehicle like a Taycan or a Tesla. It's a plug-in hybrid, like an i8 or a Prius or any myriad of those other PHEVs or PHEVs or whatever those things are called. So it's actually not very special in this regard because it doesn't bring anything different to the table except for the fact that it's now in a Jeep Wrangler format. And somehow that makes all the difference because it's currently the best-selling hybrid in America. And if you think about it, the truth is the i8, although it was a pretty decent hybrid sports car, it wasn't really a good, capable sports car. And the Prius, it's a pretty fantastic hybrid, but it's not really a car that you want to go around telling your friends about. The Jeep, though, it retains virtually 100% of its personality and almost all of its off-road capabilities, but it still gives you that extra notion of being pseudo-sustainable. You know, I actually don't really like Jeep Wranglers very much. I mean, I like the idea of them, but in practice, on actual pavement, the driving experience has been pretty mediocre, at least in the past. Somehow, though, I've become a fan of this thing, so much so that I've been considering getting one for myself. And in this episode, I'm going to explain why I think the 4Xe is a better hybrid than a normal hybrid, and maybe even a better Wrangler than a normal Wrangler. But before we do, I want to give it to our sponsor, Motor Envy. Motor Envy is a premium subscription service for high-end luxury performance cars. They specialize in a leasing program that lets you switch cars whenever you want. There's no penalty at all. That's great because sometimes there's that car that you're really curious about, but you don't know if you want to have a long-term commitment with it. And this Wrangler 4Xe is the perfect example because most of us know that you can get a pretty banging lease sale directly from Jeep. But what if you end up hating the car or you need something else because your priorities change? Well, that's too bad because now you're stuck in a 3 or 4 year lease. But with Motor Envy, you can simply just bring it right back for something else that better fits the bill. On top of that, you can do it all with one simple pricing structure. Plus, they have locations in the Tri-State, California, and South Florida, so go check them out at motorenvy.com. Now let's get back to the review.
The Jeep Wrangler needs no introduction. It's been around since the mid-80s and we're currently in its 4th generation, dubbed the JL. This 4-door version is 188.4 inches long, which technically puts it in the compact SUV segment. But frankly, until the introduction of the recent Ford Bronco, it has had no real competition. On the outside, you can distinguish the 4Xe with all the bright blue trim bits, the tow hooks in the front and the back, the badges on the side and the rear, and all the little blue accents on the wheels. Speaking of wheels, I really do enjoy these high-altitude aero wheels. They're probably the best looking stock option for the Jeep, but I would definitely do the beadlock look if I were going to get a lift and bigger tires. The rest of the car is unmistakably Wrangler. Yes, a facelift is coming in 2024, but like Porsches, Jeeps age remarkably well. And though changes might be noticeable to a Jeep enthusiast, most people on the road probably won't even know the difference. That said, stock Jeeps have always looked a little bit like dudes that haven't done leg day in a while. And I would even call it a bit effeminate when you compare it to its rival, the Bronco. But I still find the Wrangler to be overall more civilized and mature in its design. On the inside, the car is pretty mundane. There are a few extra tidbits that remind you that you're driving a hybridized vehicle, but other than that, it's the same old Jeep that we've come to know and love. It's enough to get the job done, but compared to some of the luxury vehicles here at Motor Envy that I've been driving, it could feel a bit Spartan. The standard 8.4-inch touchscreen infotainment is just that, standard. Nothing too fancy, just normal Mopar stuff that we've all been accustomed to. You get a slightly different instrument cluster than a normal Jeep, as well as some fancy blue mode buttons that let you switch from EV to some other drive modes. The front seats are basic but surprisingly cushy and comfortable. The back seat area is actually not too tight for full-sized adults, and that means for young families carrying kids, it's probably perfect. I've always wanted a Wrangler for traveling around with my dogs, and I'm glad to report that a 100-pound Doberman Pinscher fits in the back no problem. But regardless, we know this is no G-Wagon. Yet, it's still got enough luxury amenities to let you get down and dirty comfortably. Anyway, let's take it for a drive. There are 3 drive modes in the 4Xe: hybrid, full EV, and something called eSave. I tried out this latter mode because when I got the car I had 0 range on the battery. This mode basically uses solely the combustion engine and regeneration to try and recharge the battery bank. And what that means is that you're basically driving around with that 2-liter inline 4 with 270 horses. It's enough to commute and get the job done. It's slightly underpowered for anything more than that, but the main issue is that it's noisy and it's rough. Not noisy in the sense that EV people call anything noisy, but it's more noisy than a normal 2-liter 4-banger. Kind of like an economy car like a Chevy Spark or something like that. It recharges at a very modest rate, and from what I gather online, it's probably the most inefficient method of charging the battery, even if you turn the regen on. which by the way makes the car feel a lot more like an EV. It's not as aggressive as Tesla's one-pedal driving, but more like a first or second gear engine brake. It can get a little bit annoying if you're not used to it though. Aside from that, it drives like a normal Jeep. Actually, it drives better because I'm guessing that extra weight and lower center of gravity from the battery bank is making it feel a little bit more balanced and planted. Wranglers have always felt vague, floaty, and confused about their identity. This car is still that, but it's a lot less of it. It's different enough to the point where I feel like I could drive one every day and not be annoyed by the chassis or the steering. Power delivery in electric mode is as you would expect, instantaneous and torquey, but with only 134 horsepower, it doesn't really put you in the back of your seat like a true EV. I find it adequate for commuting short distances or any sort of driving where you don't plan on going faster than 50 or 60 miles per hour, because after that, the range really starts to drain dramatically faster. For any long distance drives, I would definitely just put it into hybrid mode, which I actually found to be the smoothest driving mode. Something I really find important in hybrids and EVs is the acoustics. Most electric cars are decently insulated from road noise, so it's pretty quiet in full electric mode. But the Wrangler is not, so you get a lot of wind noise and random sounds at higher speeds. I get it though, it's part of the job description, so it's not really a complaint as much as it is a quirk. What I do like, however, is the Alpine sound system. It's not the best audio system I've experienced, but it's certainly better than your standard Bose speakers on a Porsche or a Corvette, and it's more than enough to have a good time driving. On the flip side, the seats have no real lateral support. There's an above average amount of body roll, and the steering is the polar opposite of responsive. But I think it's a small price to pay for what you get in return. A relatively comfortable, daily drivable, mild hybrid that has serious off-road capabilities, doorless attitude, and over 30 inches of floating depth. Let's just take a moment to go over the technical and performance specs of the car. The Wrangler 4Xe has a turbocharged 2-liter inline-4 that makes 270 horsepower and 295 pounds of torque on its own. But when you factor in the electric motors, the combined output becomes something like 375 horses with a massive 470 pounds of torque. As mentioned somewhere before, the battery pack is 14 kilowatt hours, which is good for roughly 22 miles of EV range. One of the only things I like about electrification is that it usually makes a vehicle faster, at least in some cases. Real world 0 to 60 is about 5.5 seconds, whereas quarter mile time is 14.1 at 96 miles per hour. Interestingly though, they factory limit the top speed at 100 miles per hour. But that's probably for the better because this car is really just geared for off-road fun anyway.
There are two main reasons why you're probably considering a Wrangler 4Xe. The first is the fact that it's a hybrid off-road Jeep with a usable electric-only range. The second is the fantastic EV incentives that are currently allowing you to get into a Wrangler at surprisingly low leases. I'm in the first camp. I've always liked Wranglers because besides cars, I'm big on outdoor stuff. I mostly hunt, fish, and boat, but a lot of the places I go require a 4x4 to access, and I don't necessarily need to bring my whole battle rig to get the job done. So the Wrangler would be the perfect partner in crime. It'll tow my boat, my utility trailer, take my kid, take my dogs. It'll do it all while being a relatively compact footprint and looking cool doing it at the same time. Yeah, the interior is a little bit Spartan, the 2024s will be a little bit better, but I'm not expecting a G-Wagon here, because then I wouldn't want to expose it to nearly as much abuse as I would a Jeep. And like I mentioned earlier, the addition of the hybrid drivetrain makes it a smoother experience overall. The transmission is still a little bit clunky, the steering is numb, and the chassis is numb too, but it's still better than the base powertrains that I've driven in the past. So then why is this better than a hybrid like a Prius? Well, yeah, a Prius will get you like more efficiency and EV range, but it can't do anything else besides commute and then maybe carry some groceries. In a Jeep, you can do pretty much everything you can do in a normal Jeep and then some. As for the range, 22 miles doesn't sound like a lot, but for me, I don't drive that much in a day, so an overnight charge will pretty much get me full for the next day, and frankly, I would never actually touch the combustion engine unless I'm doing like a longer trip, and even then it's like almost 50 mpg. Of course, once you start modding with a lift and 35s, you can kiss that advertised range goodbye because, you know, physics. But it's still nice to know that you're sort of eco-friendly in a way, I suppose. The Wrangler 4Xe, it's not perfect. It's got its flaws, some more apparent than others, but do the pros outweigh the cons for my kind of lifestyle? After spending over a week with it, it's still kind of hard to say. If we didn't have this Taycan Cross Turismo, this could probably be a pretty good budget alternative. But if I had to make a prediction, I would say that Jeep should come out with the Gladiator 4Xe. And because of the increased wheelbase and overall size, you could probably stuff a bigger battery in there. And then get maybe 30 or 40 miles of all EV range. And then now you've got a small Jeep pickup that's the best of all worlds. That would probably be a car that I'd buy. Unless they do an all EV Gladiator, then we're golden. Because for the record, I'm really not a fan of hybrids, but that's a conversation for another time. Special thanks to Motor Envy for letting us spend some quality time with this Wrangler 4Xe. I've always been extremely curious about these things, especially since I've heard them come out. And I'm glad I got to do this review so that I can make an educated decision for both myself and any viewers that are interested in one. If you want to get into nice luxury cars, but you don't want to be stuck in a long-term commitment, definitely check out MotorEnvy.com. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the Wrangler 4Xe in the comments below. That's going to do it for me on this episode, and as always, I will catch you all on the next one.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. If so, hit that like button and share the video with your friends. I can't cover everything I want to in the short amount of time that I have, so if I missed something, let me know in the comments below. If this is your first time here, don't forget to check out some more videos on the channel. We produce all sorts of cinematic car content, so if you like what you see, smash that subscribe button for new episodes whenever they come out. Thanks for watching.